Segment 3, what used to shield Americans from this temptation you've described of turning toward the state. You write that Tocqueville identified 4 characteristics that tended to insulate Americans in particular against what you call the servile temptation. I'd just like to tick down the list, which seems quite disparate, actually. If you just look at a listing, they don't seem to hang together, and have you explain them. Yes, as simple as that. There are 4. Local government.
Right, okay. Local government's force is simple. It's your government. You participate in it. The problem with a republic on an extended territory is that it's distant from you and largely invisible. The virtue of the commune or the township or the county is if something's wrong, you can fix it yourself. You can join with your neighbors. And it teaches you civic agency, because there are a whole series of problems that come up locally, especially in the early American Republic where there wasn't much of a national government and not much of a state government. If a road was going to be built, it had to be done locally. If a hospital was needed, you had to get together with your fellow citizens and build it. If a school needed to be built, you can just go down the list. Okay, what happens is it quiets inquietude. And it quiets inquietude because you're not anxious. You know how to do these things. You know how to do these things because you grew up doing them in your township. And that brings me to the second thing on your list, I suspect, which is civic association.
Exactly,
Right. The thing that Tocqueville noticed when he came to the United States that was unheard of and unthinkable in France to this very day.
1830s.
Yeah, the early 1830s. Is that most of the things that the French looked to the government for, Americans did through private organizations. It was his belief that they learned what he called the art of association through participation in local self-government. That is to say, the existence of these townships taught them how to cooperate with other people. And they were then able to do this and bypass the government altogether and build a road, bypass the government altogether and build a school or a hospital or a poorhouse or something along those lines.
People actually develop a specific set of skills at addressing anxieties through concrete collective action.
Right. And so they see themselves, instead of being passive and instead of being victims, they see themselves as agents. Yes, there are problems. We faced this sort of problem before. We know how to deal with it. We will pull ourselves together and deal with it.
So the fundamental difference between a citizen and a peasant, or between a citizen and a client of the state,
or a citizen and a subject,
or a subject,
is agency. And the French didn't have that. They had no local self-government. The mayors were appointed by the prefects. They didn't elect any local officials. It was illegal to form associations because the government feared that these might be revolutionary in character. And the consequence is they had no experience with doing things themselves. To this day in France, if you were a very wealthy man, you could not start a foundation. You couldn't set it up. There's no law to allow you to do it. You would have to go to the Council of State and get the permission of the government to start the foundation.
To give away your own money.
And the government would ask to have a representative on your board to guide you in giving away your money. So that's what's called centralized administration in Tocqueville.
We've got another 2, religion. Religion. How does religion shield Americans from the servile temptation?
Okay, the French weren't very religious. The Americans were shockingly religious for Tocqueville. Religion, be it Judaism or Christianity, teaches that one is a child of God. And also, especially Protestant Christianity, which was the dominant form in the United States, teaches that the salvation of your soul is your own business. It throws you back on yourself and it makes you responsible. And no one else can take that responsibility for you. In other words, this is not a world of medieval tutelage with the church guiding you. No, you're the interpreter of the Bible yourself. It is your responsibility. The effect of this is you have a sense of your own dignity, and you have a sense of areas of life that you would not allow anyone to encroach upon because they belong to you in some fundamental primeval way. So you have a kind of natural pride that makes it very hard for you to become a subject. Very hard to turn a serious, fierce Protestant into a subject. I say this as someone of Catholic background. I'm not taking sides on this, but the old Protestant ethic in the United States was an ethic of, well, religious quarrels. They were always splitting into new sects.
Right.
That's a sign of how seriously they took religious doctrine, but also how seriously they took themselves. And when you take yourself seriously, you won't allow people to walk upon you.
Paul, the American family.
Okay,
Surely they had families in France. This is possibly the most puzzling item on the list.
Okay. Montesquieu once said in The Spirit of Laws that a Frenchman does not like to talk to another man about his wife because he's afraid the man with whom he's speaking may know her better than he does. The French family was not in great shape in the 18th and the early 19th centuries. Adultery was commonplace in France. Tocqueville was shocked in America. Adultery was virtually unheard of. He was amazed that American women chose their own husbands and stuck with them and made the thing work. The consequence is...
So this is not the subjection of women in the United States. On the contrary, there's a kind of incipient feminism that has already asserted itself.
Well, feminism might not be the right word for it, but let's put it this way.
Pride, sense of dignity of the role of the women.
Women are strong-minded.
Right.
His American women are not weak.
Right. Try that on me, Buster, and I'm kicking you out of the log
That's
cabin.
right.
All
I mean, they want family, so they've chosen the private realm. But they make the choices. The men beg and the women say yes or no. And then once having said yes...
I recognize the pattern.
Yes, right, yes. Once having said yes, they make the thing work. Okay, the effect of that is that the home is a kind of haven in the world. It is not a source of inquietude, as it is in France. It is a haven. It reinforces your sense of being in control of life because there is this space of quiet in your life. And, you know, if you ask Tocqueville, why is America different in this way? He says, because the women are religious. So it's tied back to the religious question. Right. And the religious question, another aspect of that is all of the religious groups teach the same morality. So there's a strong sense of what is right and wrong. One is not at sea and therefore facing inquietude when it comes to moral questions. You understand where you stand morally. You understand where you stand with regard to your wife and children. There's a kind of solidity to American life that you don't see in France.